Today on the Big 3 in 30, Trent Williams signs a deal to stay in San Francisco.
It's a 2-year deal and an extension, and then
Seahawks say they're open for business before the NFL draft.
They're not shying away from having that pick available to trade down.
And the Chargers get a pair of key linemen back on the practice field.
How much of a good sign it was to see Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt back on the field.
This is the Big 3 in 30 NFL, the 3 biggest stories in the NFL from our local experts at the Locked On Podcast Network. We bring you the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 30 minutes. The Big 3 in 30 NFL starts now. Thank you for making the Big 3 in 30 your first listen of the day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Trent Williams is staying in San Francisco after agreeing to a new 2-year, $50 million deal. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with Locked On 49ers have more.
it's a 2-year deal and an extension, and then in my head is like, well, he's locked up for 2 years, and they like McKivitz, and they have him around. Maybe tackle just isn't in their future plans, and do I need to really adjust the way I drafted? Because I probably could have taken someone else, let's say Max Ahanator, which feels more like a guard that can play tackle as opposed to a guy that's just like, oh, this is really a tackle. And Blake Miller's really a tackle. So in my head, I'm like, maybe I should have taken somebody else. It could have been a guard, or it could have been a completely different position, because I think the 49ers continue. I mean, first, tremendous offseason, I think, by the 49ers. I think they've done extremely well this year, building a competitive roster and moving strategically with everything they've done. But they continue to make it to where we can really take best player available. And I don't think there's any position that the 49ers could draft and the fan base be upset, because you could see a path to that guy being an answer long term.
Yeah, certainly more than last year they've done that, which is making the mock drafts a little bit more difficult for me, and I'm sure it was for you as well, to try to really dial in what the 49ers were doing. I really do feel like I had a beat on what the 49ers were doing last year and hit on a number of picks, but this year I might go over, because I don't feel nearly as confident about the direction the 49ers are going to go. I have an idea of what I think it's going to look like potentially, but we'll see. And I don't think that it changes that much with the Trent Williams signing. And I really want to see what exactly the deal ends up looking like. According to Trent Williams' agency, Croc, Trent Williams make NFL history with securing a new 2-year, $50 million contract with the 49ers. The contract includes $37 million fully guaranteed and a $22 million signing bonus, making Trent the first non-QB in NFL history to surpass $400 million in contracts and $225 million in guarantees. So we're talking about the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history here in Trent Williams. So first of all, congratulations to Trent Williams. Plenty of fuel for that PJ, right?
Yeah.
And so 2-year contract, Croc. So I want to see how this deal is structured, because my initial thought when I saw this was like, okay, kind of expected Trent Williams to be back. It's a 2-year contract. My question was about the second year of the contract. Clearly, that means Trent is going to be here this year for the 49ers. But you know what happens when we reach the final year of a Trent Williams contract, which is what we went through this offseason. And guess what? That's next offseason again. So what is the plan? Is there a succession plan that the 49ers want to start here? Is next year's part of the deal actually really part of the deal that they plan on playing out? And how does that contract structure look? And what does next year's numbers look like? And is Trent Williams going to say, well, that's not going to work for me once we get to next year, which is probably what is going to happen. And then we're doing the dance once again. But John Lynch did speak on those things at his press conference. And the words that John Lynch used was, I have great confidence that Trent Williams will be here for the 2 years of that contract. But we still have to prepare for the future, was kind of the short answer of what John Lynch gave about that. So what do you think? Is if truly Trent Williams is going to be the starting left tackle for the next 2 years, you definitely don't need to start finding his replacement necessarily right now, because that would mean you could start finding that replacement offensive tackle next year, and he would still have that first year that he could play and wait, maybe behind Trent Williams. So it is definitely something to think about. I'm not sure if I buy that, though, Croc, right now, that Trent Williams is going to be the starting left tackle for the 49ers in 2027. At his age, there's a lot that can happen between now and then, is all I'm saying.
I gotta find the text message I sent to you. Let me pull that up real quick. But I said right here at 8:49 a.m. with only 37 million of the money fully guaranteed and 22 million signing bonus. Is this kind of a 1-year deal?
That's my question. Yeah, and we know how agents love to fluff those numbers too. So when we see what the real numbers are, does it even look like 37 million guaranteed, or is it completely different looking structure wise? And 22 of that is in signing bonus. So that means next year there's going to be a lot of not guaranteed money, which could seemingly be easy to get out of. Or, maybe so do you want to go? I'm going to go galaxy brain, sort of conspiracy theory, lying season, playing the NFL draft game with this, Croc. We need it. Are you ready for this right now?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're the 49ers and you're playing the draft game, and right now everybody has offensive tackle in their mock drafts, and all the Todd McShay in his last mock draft said Caleb Lomu, his floor, he will not get past the 49ers at 27. Like, matter of factly, he's saying this, right? I don't know where they're getting their information. We know insiders are very wrong. They have been very wrong before about the 49ers, right? A lot of teams are trying to lie, because it is lying season, and throw people off their scent too. And there's a reason that insiders still only get like 5 picks right over the course of the entire first round, getting team to player, because you think but you really don't know. And insiders get their information from other teams. They don't get it from the actual team they're reporting on. They get it from what the teams think that the other teams are going to do, so it becomes a weird game of telephone from insiders. But if you're the 49ers and you wanted to potentially draft the heir apparent at offensive tackle, and you really had a good feeling about, maybe you like Proctor, Lomu, and Max Ahanator, you're like, with the best guy that's there of those three, one of them's going to be there. We're going to draft him. Like, we're going to do this, and he's going to play guard for a year and compete there, and he's going to be our next left tackle, right? Maybe that's the plan for the 49ers. But they don't want teams to, especially the team right behind them. Texans need an offensive lineman. They don't want the Texans to jump in front of the 49ers and trade up and get their guy, right? And so if what's the advantage of announcing the signing and signing Trent Williams 2 days before the draft, 3 days before the draft?
You throw people off, you throw people off a little bit.
Yeah.
Oh, they're not going to offensive line now. Well, same thing I thought. Okay, I think that ends the line talks. But does it?
Right. So the thing you don't want is everybody to go like, oh, so it is wide receiver, and then jump in front of you for the thing that you do want to take. So I think there's an opportunity for the 49ers here that if they really wanted wide receiver, they would want to keep people projecting offensive tackle to them at 27. And if they want an offensive tackle, this is a way to get people to start mocking other positions and projecting that the 49ers are not going to go offensive tackle. Do you buy that the 49ers could be playing the draft game that hard that they could have waited to announce it, but they didn't? The timing is very interesting on this one. And it could be nothing. It could be that they just wanted to have things guaranteed. And once it was done, and they wanted to have some something solid before the draft came. But I feel like the 49ers played the draft game enough that it had to be something that they talked about and thought about, at least.
Yeah, no, that's a curious one. He was asked about a little bit on the presser about the timing of it, and does it change any of your plans heading into the draft? I wish he kind of would have waited, because I think then at least just playing the game, it leaves everything open for people to not know exactly what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would rather go into it knowing, well, we got our guy, right? Kind of like with the whole Joe Staley, him retiring. Well, we didn't know Joe Staley was retiring, and then all of a sudden they trade for, they end up trading for Trent Williams. I mean, same thing back with the McGlinchey pick, and there was one person, was it Peter Schrager, who had the 49ers taking Mike McGlinchey at pick 9.
I think it was Daniel Jeremiah, maybe.
We're like, Mike McGlinchey, there's no way. Like, the 49ers have Joe Staley and Trent Brown. Like, why would they do that? Then all of a sudden they drafted him when it didn't make a whole lot of sense. I like the 49ers kind of keeping things close to the vest until it happens, and then they make their move after. So pick 27, hoping you get the guy that you wanted, and then, hey, as soon as that pick comes in, we can announce right then and there, oh, by the way, we re-signed our guy Trent Williams.
You know that feeling around dinner time when you're starving, maybe a little hangry, and somehow there's nothing in your fridge? That's why Home Chef is the easiest way to have real balanced meals ready to go without the stress. Home Chef makes cooking simple. You get fresh ingredients delivered right to your door, easy to follow recipes, and meals that actually taste great. No long shopping lists, no complicated prep, and best of all, easy cleanup. What I love most is how flexible it is. Some nights I've got time for a full 30-minute meal. Other nights I just want something oven ready or quick. And they've got options for all of it. And honestly, the meals feel restaurant quality. It's like having a personal chef without the cost. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering listeners 50% off and free shipping on your first box, plus free dessert for life. Go to homechef.com/lockedonnfl. That's homechef.com/lockedonnfl for 50% off your first box and free dessert for life. homechef.com/lockedonnfl. Must be an active subscriber to receive free dessert. Spring is a natural reset point, and if there's one thing that can quietly cost businesses money, it's messy communication. Missed calls, scattered texts, no clear thread of who said what. That's why today's episode is brought to you by Quo, spelt Quo, the smarter way to run your business communications. Quo is the #1 rated business phone system on G2 with over 3,000 reviews, trusted by more than 90,000 businesses. It lets your entire team share one business number so you never miss a call, text, or opportunity. Everything lives in one clean thread. Calls, texts, voicemails. The whole team sees the conversation, so nothing falls through the cracks. It just makes your business feel more organized and responsive. Make this the season no opportunity and no customer slips away. Try Quo free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedonnba. That's quo.com/lockedonnba. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NFL. The Seahawks are open for business before the draft and looking to trade down from number 32 to add some more picks. Corbin Smith with Locked On Seahawks has more.
Typically in the pre-draft press conference with coaches and general managers, you're not going to get much information on plans heading into the upcoming draft. But in the case of John Schneider and Mike Macdonald, on Monday, holding the 32nd pick and only 3 other selections, they're not shying away from having that pick available to trade down. John Schneider saying that they are open for business, including if an NFC West rival wants to trade up. That was a big question today in the presser, asking whether that alters Seattle's view on trading down if somebody in their division calls. And Schneider said that they have good relationships with all 3 other teams in the division, and they would be open to that. The reality is, Rob, if you're doing your job, you don't need to worry about what other teams, even in your own division, are doing. At the same time, do you want to hand another team in the division a quarterback trading up? That would be the Arizona Cardinals, potentially 2 spots behind Seattle. But nonetheless, it is open for business, and they're just hoping that there's going to be some fruitful offers thrown their way at the end of the first round on Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that John Schneider and Mike McDowell might as well have stopped by a Home Depot or a Lowe's or something, about one of those for sale signs, and just started off their press conference by holding up that sign and just in almost unanimity, just saying, hey, the pick, all of Seattle's 4 draft picks are essentially up for sale. They want to acquire more draft selections. And I thought that, as you said, I mean, the fact that they just shared their feelings that trading within the division should not be taboo, including if that team is looking up for or is trading up for a quarterback. Obviously everybody is going to be focusing on the Arizona Cardinals. Ty Simpson of Alabama, who a lot of people are linking to the Cardinals. Simpson has been locked in with the has been linked with the Los Angeles Rams as well. And obviously they have a superstar, Matthew Stafford, but their current backup, Jimmy Garoppolo, is at least reportedly considering retiring. And so maybe Sean McVay is looking at the future at the quarterback position. So, I do think that those are some interesting kind of comments for John Schneider and Mike Macdonald to make, and John Schneider specifically to make during his press conference here about the fact that he is not going to be shy about trading in the division. So I do think that's interesting. I do think that Seattle was fairly coy in most of their comments about this draft class. They certainly didn't just say, like, here's who we're going to take. Here is our
You're never going to get that. So
yeah, exactly. But I also think that it is important to note that that Schneider recognized the fact that look, they're the Super Bowl champions. Feel good about that, but that they weren't expecting other NFL teams to be unwilling to partner in a trade with them because they're the champs. And I think that has been something that I frankly had some concern about, just because, again, why would you want to help the defending Super Bowl champions? I think that goes back to what you said in the opening of the show, Corbin, that this is John Schneider's 17th year. He has built so many quality relationships with so many different general managers and teams, and it's one out of respect, and mutual respect. And so that's going to make it a little bit easier with the NFL dropping the amount of time that you have from 10 minutes to 8 minutes in the first round. The Seahawks are going to be working the phones now rather than wait until they're on the clock Thursday night.
And that's really not anything different than normal status quo. I saw a lot of different quote pieces today from beat writers covering other teams where general managers were complaining about the 10 minutes down to 8 minutes. And John Schneider's like, basically, Austin Powers, whoop-de-doo, Basil. Like, it's not a big deal. We already are having these conversations. We are already several picks ahead. They're going to be able to make trades. He's not worried about this 2 minutes. So it's a different viewpoint than a lot of the other general managers. It seem like they're wary about that going from 10 minutes to 8 with the first round selection. Another thing that really jumped out to me, it's not new necessarily. We've heard John Schneider talk about the adjustments that he's going to be making, some of the adjustments he's already made in recent drafts based on those two post-Super Bowl drafts in 2013 and 2014, that they're looking for guys that have more of a competitive gene in their DNA. They are looking for guys that aren't going to be like, oh, I played as Devin Witherspoon on Madden 2 years ago. He's my idol. They're looking for stone cold killers. They're going to come in and say, I don't care if you're Devin Witherspoon. He just won a Super Bowl. I'm coming for your job. They're looking for guys that have that competitive DNA. And a big part of that is the comparison issue. And Schneider made it clear, like, they try not to get into that ball of knives where they are comparing players in this year's draft class to players they previously coached or scouted, like an Earl Thomas or a Cam Chancellor, Richard Sherman. Let these players breathe as their own prospects, and that prevents you from getting pinholed where you're trying to draft players that are a certain archetype rather than just going and getting the best player that you can get your hands on, which I thought was a really interesting revelation in terms of where they are at as an organization with the way they scout players.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think that you can get yourself trapped by just kind of following that doppelganger kind of route. And that's an article actually I wrote for Seahawks.com that was following that strategy. Okay, you want to replace Boye Mafe? In my opinion, the best match for that would be Malachi Lawrence from UCF. You want to replace Rick Woolen? In my opinion, Takario Davis from the University of Washington would be the match for that. But why not shoot bigger than those players? I mean, why not, hope that you're going to get somebody who is a better fit for Mike Macdonald's defense as it is evolving in 2026 rather than what it was when Pete Carroll was part of the brain trust that selected those players in the first place, and that Mike Macdonald had to adjust. So I do think that is an interesting acknowledgement by the Seahawks that they are not looking to replace the legends of the past with similarly built players. I think that's something that you have to do. You have to take every draft class and every player as the player that they are, the individual that they are, and how do they fit with this particular roster.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And there were two other things that stood out to me. There was more than that, but there were two other main points here. Just getting to know how Mike Macdonald, we remember 2 years ago when he was like a fish out of water, just trying to jump head first and trying to figure out how to do things as a head coach. And he acknowledged today that, like, look, I've kind of taken a little bit of a step back here in year 3. Like, I'm letting everybody do their jobs. I know what my role is. I'm saying less. I'm delegating more to the rest of the guys on staff, letting the personnel department, the scouting department do their thing. And you could just see it. Obviously, he just won a Super Bowl, still a lot of smiles. But I think it's also like, hey, I know how to do this job now. I understand how to delegate to everybody around me. And John Schneider has the system already in place. It's made it easier. He understands that. And with that, they are not just filling needs. They are looking for the right guys to fit what they need personnel-wise and roster-wise rather than just plugging a need. And that goes back to that comp thing as well. A lot of interlocking narratives here, but really that's the way that the Seahawks are drafting now, and Mike Macdonald is fully immersed in that, and he's ready to rock and roll in his third draft.
Yeah, exactly. And that, to me, is one of the biggest takeaways here is how lockstep they sounded. Look, obviously, the Seahawks lost a very talented play caller in Clint Kubiak to the Las Vegas Raiders, but they retained all of their scouting staff. And that was not something that had happened in previous Super Bowl runs, where you lost some of your best, talent evaluators, at least in my opinion. This is a scouting staff that I feel has a couple of different future NFL general manager candidates already on their roster. And John Schneider was kind of mentioning them, several of by name. We've had them on our own show, Corbin. And I think that the fact that Seattle does have as gifted of a scouting staff as they do, I think it puts them in a position to be successful, whether it be with 4 draft picks this weekend or whether they wind up trading back and acquiring more talent. I do feel that Seattle has the scouting staff as well as the coaching staff to be able to make the 2026 draft class be very, very effective for the Seahawks.
Matt Derry here from the Locked On Lions podcast. Life insurance is one of those things you don't really think about until you have a reason to. For me, it really hit home when my father passed away over 20 years ago. You start thinking less about yourself and more about the people who depend on you and making sure they're taken care of no matter what. That's why I like Ethos. They make getting life insurance simple. It's 100% online, no doctor visits, no needles, none of that. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in just a few minutes, and even get same-day coverage. And honestly, that's huge because life gets busy. You can get up to $3 million in coverage, and some plans are as low as just $30 a month. It's just one of those things that gives you peace of mind knowing your family is protected. Take 10 minutes to get covered today with life insurance through Ethos. Get your free quote at ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. That is ethos.com/LockedOnNFL. Applications may vary. Rates may vary.
Welcome back to the Big 3 and 30 NFL. Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt were back on the field for the start of the Chargers offseason program, a big boost for that offensive line. Daniel Wade and David Drogmeyer with Locked On Chargers have their thoughts on the returns.
How much of a good sign it was to see Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt back on the field for the Chargers offseason workouts that begun on Monday. And it's pretty menial things that they're doing out there, right? But it doesn't really matter because the thing is we're 4.5 months away from football, actual football, them playing games. And these guys have already been cleared to even do this light duty. Like it's huge because we all know kind of the eggs the Chargers have put into the basket of having both of their tackles healthy for this upcoming season and how much that's going to be able to kind of lift the rest of the line around them, which was very similar to last year, but we also saw last year with both of their injuries how quickly it can all get derailed if you don't have them. So to see them out there at this point, to see them doing the stretches and running as Jim Harbaugh would put it, like this is really good news. Even for off-season activities, I don't think it's overreacting to be like, hey, man, I'm really, really glad I saw this today. Watching these videos kind of made my day.
It was so heartwarming, honestly, for me as someone who understands how important these guys are and it's one of those things where, you just don't know how good these guys are or how good you have it until they're gone, until you really understand the value that they bring and how just amazing of players they are, until you have to try to find guys that can even provide 50% of the style and the level of play that they bring to the table. How great it is to see both these guys, after very serious injuries, be able to make it back on the field and be running around, doing agility work, just being here right now at organized team activity, something that's pretty much voluntary. For them to go out there and be present and be looking the way they look is absolutely a great sign for the Chargers.
Well, the thing is like, even if you're in walk through speed right now, like getting these guys out there to get involved with this offense, right? To be in these meetings, to be able to go out in the field and at least, go through some of that stuff, even at this point in the offseason, is going to be big for them. I mean, I think one thing we've talked about all the time, right? The chemistry, all of those things, building that within your group and playing as a group as opposed to 5 individuals, like all of that stuff just went out the window last year with the amount of attrition that they faced. And I mean, the biggest two being these two players were even in the offense last season with Greg Roman, your disgraced offensive coordinator. When just Joe Alt was out on the field, it looked like a completely different offense. It was why we thought that Greg Roman could save his job, right? Because it's like, man, even when he just had Joe Alt, they looked like a completely different team offensively. Imagine having both of these guys, right? Imagine having the version of Joe Alt that you saw out there for the short amount of time that you saw it.
Dominant.
With the addition of Rashawn Slater and, what we know he can bring to the table. That's something we've never seen if they're able to get back to where they were prior to the injury. Now, these guys could be wrapped in bubble wrap until the season starts, and nobody would bat an eye, right? If they said, hey, we're just going to hold them out until training camp, they don't even need to be out here doing this. They can watch from the sideline like we have seen them do with other people, right?
That's true.
But to be at this point 4.5 months away from actually playing a meaningful football game is huge. And I mean, it sounds funny, but like even the video with the social media team chasing the balloon around, like, they're letting go of a balloon. It's flying all over the place, and he's, cutting and trying to go track it down. I was like, man, that's a big dude to be doing those things even at his size normally, but especially a giant dude coming off of major and major ankle surgery and major ankle injuries to be out there, only a few months later doing what he's doing and having the confidence in his body to do those things. And that's the other thing too. It's getting back on the field and starting that process of being able to trust your body again, to have full confidence when you make these cuts or when you make these big lateral movements that everything's going to stay intact. If that's starting right now, that's great. If that's starting in August, not nearly as good. And I have seen some people out there, talking about, oh, well, I'm watching these videos of Joe Alt and he has a limp. Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like, it just, I didn't see anything noticeable that would cause me any concern. David, I'm sure you saw that out there as well.
I absolutely did. And the thing is like, these guys are massive. And in the point of Joe Alt, 6'8", like, he doesn't really walk like normal people, like just in general. Like, these are the very, very abnormally long limbs for a very abnormally large person. Like, they just don't move around the same way as you and I do, right? That's just a completely different situation there. And to be sitting here trying to overanalyze things that you're seeing on video, especially when you have people who are there in person watching them actually move around, like Chris Rim of ESPN, who basically, repeatedly rebutted all of the people saying, oh, he's definitely limping. And then you see later on videos of them full out running and sprinting and cutting and moving laterally. Like, if you are limping, you're not doing any of those things. They're not going to let you do any of the things. You're not going to be cleared to do any of those type of sharp, sudden movements. So I think that's something that, we should stop trying to overanalyze every little thing. I understand it. I truly do. But they are moving around just fine. And there's a lot of time between now and when they are going to ramp up to actual football activities. So let's, relax a little bit I know these guys are super important to how the Chargers are going to perform this year, but there's a lot of time between now and when they could kick things off in September.
Well, and the thing is, I feel like it's like a spurned, Chargers fans who like almost want to have their own thoughts kind of, just affirmed, right? Where it's like, no, it can't be good. Like you just always assuming kind of something bad's going to happen. But it also doesn't help when you have Twitter doctors who actually used to be real doctors out here, like David Chow saying, still with a hitch after right ankle surgery, hopefully just morning stiffness. Pause. Still time ahead of the season. So, this is actually the former disgraced Chargers team doctor who's saying this, which obviously, he is a doctor. He's saying he sees a hitch. Whatever, man. Like, if there had been any sort of meaningful setback to either of these players, there's no chance we're seeing him step within 100 feet of a field between now and July. There's just really no chance because there's no reason to. So them being out there shows you they're ahead of schedule. This is also the team doctor, who stepped down after basically the NFL Players Association kind of called for his job, had some lawsuits and stuff against him. Not to put him down, but I'm just saying, like, you can't just take everything, and run with it as far as what you see on the internet. I mean, I saw it. I didn't see anything that was concerning me for a 6'8" dude moving like that or moving at all on it after just shredding it a couple of months ago.
Exactly.
One other interesting note I thought, though, was Scott Matlock playing on offense in practice today or on Monday. As Daniel Popper said in his Hops with Pop show, that Scott Matlock was with the tight ends in the fullback group, which kind of backs up what Joe Ortiz had said, David, which says, okay, well, maybe they're a little deeper at the fullback tight end room, but maybe a little bit more shallow in the defensive line room.
Well, and hey, maybe this is Scott Matlock preparing to take the Tucker Fisk type of blocking role, right? I think that might be something. And I wonder if they're going to want to see him change his body a little bit and slim down a little bit more so that he's going to be a little bit more mobile, because Alec Ingold got brought in to be this team's fullback. So he's going to be the starting fullback. I don't really think, and hey, maybe they mix in a couple of different when they want those bigger, type personnel groupings, but, I think that's not really what the plan is. So I think, I wonder what they're going to do or what they're asking of Scott Matlock in the role that he's going to be in, because it seems like, as we are talking right now, that, it's still going to be a situation where he's fully focused on trying to make his impact on the offensive side.
Yeah, and I mean, it just on the defensive side, it's not like you're expecting a ton from him if he was to make the switch back over there. And this, even saying what we are right now, doesn't guarantee he's still on the team come the first game of the season. But right now you have Dalvin Tomlinson, Tier Tart, Jamari Caldwell, Justin Aboigbe, and then it's guys like Josh Fuga and also, Tayrod Edwards. Like, there's not a lot there. So you would have at least thought he's kind of a body there, a rotational piece. Maybe you're a little thinner in that room. I like the guys you have up top, right? But maybe a little thinner. Maybe this, kind of affects where you could see them take a tight end in the draft or how highly they take a defensive lineman in the draft. I think the Scott Matlock kind of part of this puzzle piece, I think can actually tell you a little bit about where they might need to take those positions.
That's all for today's Big 3 in 30 NFL. If you follow basketball or college sports, the Big 3 in 30 has shows for the biggest news in the NBA and on campus going up every week just like this one. Just search the Big 3 in 30 NBA or the Big 3 in 30 College wherever you're listening or watching now. Thanks again for tuning in to the Big 3 in 30 NFL.